3,500 cattle are dying. Please, for God's sake, I'll do anything. That's what Margaret Wellington sobbed into the phone at 5 a.m. But you know what? I just sat there, sipping my coffee, feeling absolutely nothing, because the brand new well I'd just dug was flowing clear and strong while her entire empire was falling apart. See, when the HOA tried to ban me from drilling on my own ranch, they had no clue the kind of war they were picking. They thought they were pushing around some insignificant farmer, but they forgot something. My family's been here for generations, and the water rights on this land are mine, written in black and white since 1952. That you want to know the real secret? My grandfather bought these 50 acres and locked down the mineral and water rights, back when nobody cared about any of that. He'd always say, "Water is life, Henry. Someday folks will realize how much it matters." Turns out, the old man was a prophet. I inherited it all after my dad passed: the land, the lakefront, and, as it turns out, the power to decide who gets to drink and who gets to watch their world dry up. About 20 years ago, Margaret and I made a handshake deal. She could draw water from my part of Crystal Lake for her herd, and she'd pay a rental fee that, honestly, I should have renegotiated 100 times. But I believed in being neighborly, in community over profit. Maybe that's my biggest flaw. She started with 500 cattle. Now, she's got 3,500, the so-called Dairy Queen of the county. Her business grew into a monster, swallowing up every small ranch around us. And through all those years, she paid me the same pittance we'd agreed to back in 2004. This year, the worst drought in half a century hit us. The lake shrank daily under that brutal Texas sun, and my own crops were barely holding on. So, I did what any farmer with an ounce of sense would do. I started drilling a well on my land, tapping into the aquifer below. Not half a day into drilling, here comes Victoria Sterling, HOA president, pressed pantsuit and pearls, waving a cease and desist letter in my face. "It's against regulations," she sneered. "You'll ruin the aesthetic. Lower property values." All the while, I'm standing there, sweat running down my back, wondering if this woman's ever pulled a weed in her life. Before I could answer, Margaret herself rolled up in her big Ford truck, her power move. "We need to talk about this well," she barked, like I was just another one of her ranch hands. I told her plain, "I need water for my crops." But she fired back, "You're risking the whole water table for your vanity project. You're just a small-time farmer." The disrespect was enough to make my blood boil. But what really hit me was her tone. Like I was nothing, like my years, my family, and my land didn't matter. Victoria jumped in to pile on, threatening $50,000 fines, legal action, and bragging about her connections. The usual HOA scare tactics. They thought they'd boxed me in, that I'd fold like always. But this time, I just smiled and told Margaret, "You might want to double-check whose lake you've been using all these years." She just looked confused as I walked away, but my mind was spinning with plans. That night, I pulled out the old files, my dad's important Keep Forever folder. Sure enough, there it was. The deed, water rights, mineral rights, everything spelled out. 20% of Crystal Lake, riparian access, all mine. Margaret's property butted up to the lake, but she never actually owned a drop. She'd only ever rented it from me, and at a rate that, given her empire, was downright charity. Next morning, at the HOA meeting, the room was packed. Neighbors, ranchers, business owners, everyone who'd ever depended on the lake, directly or indirectly. Victoria strutted to the podium and declared I was in violation, but when I took the floor, the entire story changed. I laid out the deed, the contracts, the survey maps. This land and this water have been my family's since 1952. The HOA can't regulate what it doesn't own. Margaret, every drop you've used has been mine by law. Then, for the twist, evidence. Photos of her trucks pumping water at night. Invoices showing she'd been reselling my water to other farms at $500 a truckload, pocketing the profits while paying me pennies. The room erupted. Neighbors realized they'd been fleeced, paying Margaret top dollar for water that was never hers. Victoria tried to regain control, but the crowd had turned. Margaret's lawyer tried to intimidate me, but I wasn't budging. I slid one last document across the table, a contract termination notice. As of midnight, Wellington Farms water rights are revoked. The well stays, and you get not one more drop. Margaret lost it, threatening lawsuits, doom, and destruction. But I calmly reminded her that my family's rights predate the HOA, and the law is on my side by day 3 of the cutoff. Margaret's empire was collapsing. Her cattle bellowed for water, the city cut off her access to municipal supplies, and her credit lines dried up, literally and figuratively. I watched her scramble to buy, borrow, or steal every drop she could find. But the math was brutal. 3,500 cattle need 150,000 gallons a day, and no one in the county would sell to her. Finally, she called again, voice shaking, pride broken. "Please, I'll do anything. The cattle are dying." I told her flat out. This was the price of her arrogance and theft. Actions have consequences, Margaret. Even when her ranch foreman begged me for mercy, reminding me of the innocent animals and the workers with families, I stood my ground. You know, there's a moment when you start to wonder, am I the villain here? But every time I remembered the years of disrespect, the theft, the attempt to use the HOA as her personal hit squad, I knew justice had to be done. The crisis made headlines, thousands of cattle dying. Margaret's tearful breakdown caught on a viral video, local news circling like vultures. Some blamed me, but most folks understood the real story. This was about respect, about owning your actions, about not letting power and money trump decency and the law. 3 weeks later, the community met again, this time to rebuild. Margaret was finished, her farm bankrupt, her reputation shattered, and now facing criminal charges. I stood in front of the whole crowd and proposed a water cooperative. Fair prices, honest contracts, oversight by the people who actually work this land, not by some suit in an HOA boardroom. The idea caught fire. By noon, 23 farms had signed on. The water would flow, but only for those who respected the source and the community behind it. And as for Margaret, she showed up at my gate one last time, all the fight drained out of her, begging for water to save what was left of her herd. I told her I'd already called the Humane Society and arranged for the cattle to be taken in by rescue organizations. She collapsed, grateful but broken, asking if I'd ever forgive her. I told her forgiveness wasn't mine to give. She'd have to find that in her own conscience. But as for water, the answer would always be no. Respect has to mean something. Oh, now the well runs, the cooperative thrives, the lake recovers, and the lesson remains. You never know when the smallest voice will bring down the biggest bully. Sometimes, the only thing standing between justice and ruin is one stubborn farmer who refuses to back down. So, tell me, was I too harsh, or was this justice overdue? Drop your thoughts below. Whose side are you on when the water wars come to your town?